Do I need a mic or you guys can hear? All good? Yeah? Okay, cool. Hi everyone, my name is Steve. It's very good to see some familiar faces from the last session. So if people attended the last session that we had last time, around November, I talked about what we call the Rust survey. Back then, I was interested to actually look at it, but this is probably a good time because it just released like February and all the results out right there. But I'm also going to take this opportunity to talk about my experience running Rust in my own environment and also kind of give some tip if you want to build your own Rust project where I think you should focus so that if you want to apply for a job or build stuff in your company, where you get attention, okay? So first and foremost, the community is actually quite good. Let me just make it larger so it's easier for you guys to see. United States, Germany is actually growing quite well. It's very surprising for me to see China is growing because this trend actually reminded me the rise of Golang many years ago. I remember when I looked into Golang, China is also one of the very first country in Asia to grow. And it's actually very interesting that it's actually growing for Rust too. Then you have the UK, France, Canada, Russia. And one thing that really surprised me is Japan. For a very experienced engineer in the room, tech stack in Japan kind of like frozen in time. I don't know what the hell happened. But it's very promising now they're adopting more modern stack, which is good, which I think is good. Now the sad thing is Singapore is not even listed. But also where I'm from, I'm actually from Australia. I actually can conclude that I also spoke to my fellow engineer that I used to manage in the past. Rust in Australia is also growing too. Some of the largest company that I know there, or digital native company, they're also running Rust. For us, we're still a bit way to go, but it's not a surprise, but I probably will talk a bit more what we can do if you're looking to do there. English is definitely growing. Chinese is also very interesting. Like for example, that lady talked about Rust in China, organized what I call the event in China. I'm also starting to see articles in Mandarin too, in Rust, which I think is quite good, very promising too. Now we go down a bit more, you can see the usage of Rust is starting to grow, which is good. And we go down a bit more, one of the challenges that I also agree with Rust is the learning curve. The learning curve is Rust is relatively high compared to language. Like for example, the very first Rust meetup, my cousin, he actually said, I don't want Rust, I want JavaScript and Python because I just want things to work. And if I need to consume a lot of memory in my application, it's the company's problem, not my problem. Very typical developer. Unless you're like an engineering leader, like for me, is when you look at the build, like your cost, like a cloud platform build, like containers or Kubernetes, then languages like Golang and Rust will start to pay attention. So speaking from my experience when I was running Rust in our environment, the compute and the cost, not even a blink. I thought back then Golang was good, but when I actually used Rust for our environment, it's just really, really amazing. In fact, some of you experienced engineers, you might have heard the term called FinOps or financial ops. This is true FinOps. Like the cost is just great. I can even run my stack entirely on a free tier in the cloud platform. Regardless hybrid cloud or on-prem, I literally can do that using serverless function. So it's actually quite solid. Now the way, if you really want to learn this, especially my fellow engineers if you're interested, my suggestion is maybe go back to fundamentals like C, or maybe some of the more earlier language first before you take on Rust, okay? So that's, if also for this community again, if you feel like maybe you want to do some Rust programming, just let us know. Let us know in the comment and feedback, happy to do some stuff and we can build stuff together, okay? Now, let me go down a bit more. One thing that I will agree, when we were building, like so for example, the stack that we're building is like an omni-channel platform where we have a lot of API calls. For any engineers that ever work with API, it's a nightmare to work with. You have to go through some very notorious doc. You have to figure out the integration, and you have to build the reliability of those integration APIs, right? One thing that when we actually had our Rust built as a backend is I don't need to worry about the backend. It's always the front end, and the front end is JavaScript. That's the one that's going to be a block problem. But that's a good thing because as engineers, we have so many things we need to be worried, right? You have the front end, you have the back end, and you have the platform. Then you have to figure out if whatever you built, that's what the customer wants. So the good thing is, I also can say I agree with this, and also from a maintainability is quite good. So again, my fellow engineers, one thing that you need to be mindful of is Rust, your development tax is relatively high, but once you pay that tax, your maintainability is quite solid. That one, I agree. I've seen that too in my environment right there. Now we go down right here. The cross compile in Rust, fantastic. Again, like any compile language, they do really well, which I also really appreciate. So for me, when I look at different cloud platforms, sometimes I look at ARM or different instance, I can actually do this relatively quick. I can even go to the cheapest instance that we can go. This is something I give plus point around there. Now, here, this is the one I really like. Why do people use Rust? Very rarely people will come to me and say, you know what, I like to use Rust because it's fun and easy. No, I'm sorry to say in a very honest way, you use it because you just want stability and you want some balance in your life. Maybe because maybe because I've just built so many systems and gone through so many shit, I just want things that just works. After I don't even worry about it at night. So one thing that I would say, for example, with Mono Stack that we're building, I have to fulfill some data processing security guideline. From a security point of view, solid, don't need to worry. If you use some other languages like Python or Java or JavaScript, I'm not saying they're bad, it's just that there are additional what I call security quirks sometimes you need to be mindful of. For me, when we actually build our stack, all good. Performance, fly, really good. For my fellow engineers, if you want to have a real world project, for example, when I look at resume, when I look at engineer, what do I look for? If you want a practical project to use for us, I would suggest that maybe work on data pipelines. Because with the rise of LLMs and AI, there's going to be data coming one way or the other, either in or out. Data pipeline is a really good use case for us when you actually can really see and build real world stuff that you can see right there. For the last one right here, yes, the maintainability is quite good, which I also agree, which allows us to focus predominantly more on the front end layer, which is we use React. Okay. For me right now, our original use case why we use Rust is because we use it more as an API gateway, just like a very simple post get. You can argue, hey, you can use any what I call API framework like Fast API or Node.js or anything. But I found when we actually got Rust, we don't need to worry about API. It's rarely our problem. The problem is usually the database or somebody screw up the CSS on the front end, right? Usually it's that way. One thing I'm actually looking right now, yes, I'm aware of that lady that she had a problem on LLMs. One of the side project I'm working on, I'm gonna use Rust as a data pipeline to push data into my database on that layer right there. Traditionally, data pipelines, people use Python. Again, Rust, good suggestion if you want to build some what I call real-world product. Likewise, like here, I agree with this survey. Predominantly, we use on the back end. I am seeing some cloud-based applications that which traditionally Kubernetes was written in Go. I'm seeing some rewrite already in Rust. So if you're into DevOps and cloud, you will see more and more of that. I agree with this particular one right there. So that's pretty much it right now. I will agree, especially if you're in Singapore. Sometimes people say, hey, there's no Rust shop. I agree. It depends on the country that you go for. If like, for example, the country that's listed there, they traditionally have a bit more what I call Rust projects or jobs, but that's actually growing right there. Now from a complexity point of view, I won't worry too much. Every programming language has its own complexity. Rust is pretty much, I usually say it's the beginning curve, like just like Tailwind CSS. In the beginning, yes, you need to pay that tax, but once you pay that tax, your efficiency starts to go skyrocket right there. Okay? That's pretty much it. I won't go anymore. But I'm pretty much open to like people want to ask me questions or thoughts and feedback. So before I continue on. Yeah.
One comment actually around maintainability. I was looking at some internally at work. I was looking at some data, and I was saying that often we think like, oh, how much is this going to cost to develop?
Yeah.
And it's the actual effort in long running, keeping software long running is about 70% maintenance and about 30% everything else.
That's correct.
So maintenance is a huge deal.
That's correct. I haven't met an engineer that says to me, you know what, I just love maintaining code. I just love fixing bugs. I haven't met an engineer. If you do, please speak to me. I'd like to see you. Yeah, I'll be very frank. Again, even my team, right, my engineers, I say, look, I understand what you look for. You want to build stuff, right? You want to build stuff that has an impact. So let's make maintainability easy. Let's build modular components, and that's what I like about this. yes, not every engineering leader or team will say, I understand you need the time to build first. You need to pay the development tax. I very rarely will, but I also, again, if that's a conversation, I'll talk a bit more how you handle those stuff. Any questions? Any feedback? Yeah?
Your thoughts on synchronous Rust? What are your thoughts on async?
Async in Rust?
Yeah.
Getting better. But in all honesty, most programming languages is pretty fucked up anyway. Apart from Go, because Go actually got it right,
Yeah.
but a lot of developers just screw it because, oh, async is so easy. Fire, 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 and it's a nightmare for ops people. I know that. It's getting better. One thing that what we found, because of the stack that we have, right, we have a lot of asynchronous calls, webhook stuff, it's insane. They handled it quite well. It's okay if things go wrong. Things will go wrong. It's the error message. Yeah, Rust error message pretty good. And when it goes wrong, it's not catastrophic.
It's not nice and easy. Error messages may not necessarily be very nice.
Yeah, but I say it's
getting better.
Yeah, it's getting better. But in all honesty, Golang has more maturity and stuff. They also got better. This one, I think it will get better over time. But overall, like for example, asynchronous stuff. My advice to developers that want to do, even my team, is if you want to do async, do it carefully. It's very powerful, but do it carefully.
Sometimes you have no choice, right?
Yeah.
It's a web framework or a
Yeah.
database, I think you have to use it.
Yeah. Like for example, handle the errors nicely and stuff.
No choice, yeah.
Write good error message, please. All developers just like, I remember I seen one error message, question mark. Oh, what the hell is that? I feel like, anyway, different story. But again, it's okay, things will fail. And as long as you raise that, you design good error message or you flush the log out, it's good. But yeah, so far right now, our platform and our backend stack is quite good. The one that keep me problem is the front end, the React layer. But it's okay, it's expected. Yeah.
Also, going back to your previous point, I think the problem is that in the corporate, the problem is that in the corporate setting, when the company that develops the software may not be the company that's making long term. So
Yes.
if you are the developer, the company developing the software, the company probably won't want to spend your development tax.
Oh, that's a very tough conversation to have. Sometimes I also understand where you're coming from because it's the nature of the company here in Singapore. I don't have a good answer for you. I only say that, hey, if you can find some lucky place that allows you to do good stuff, that's only my advice. You're right. I've seen some stack, they build crap, and if somebody maintains it, and maybe sometimes you're the one. I don't have a good answer for you for that. I only say, hopefully one day you're lucky, you find something that you work on, or maybe just do something on the side where you get experience with that. Like for example, my cousin, I actually mentor my cousin right now. I gave him a lot of advice what he needs to build and stuff to do around. Yeah. Anything else? Any questions? Any feedback?
Last 5 minutes.
Any certification coming up for the rest?
Oh, I'm not the Rust community guy. I don't represent the Rust. The thing with certification is very weird. I know some employers they value it, but when it comes to programming, certification doesn't mean anything. Like for me, right? When I look at your resume, you show me certification. I just ask a few questions. I already can propose to you, right? I think it's much better that, for example, you kind of showcase project that has a tangible result. That's why I personally will recommend my fellow peers here, if you want to build something, maybe start with data pipelines. Because right now, because of AI, with the data moving in and out, it's either data moving in or moving out. It's always data moving around. That's a good use case for you to start, then you start building stuff on top. Cool. Again, I just want to say thank you, everybody. Even I was very surprised when Ellen first told me about this location. I'm like, okay, I don't know. Well, again, thank you so much. Please keep an update. Again, leave your comment and feedback, we'll meet up. Okay? All right, thank you.